Ogryns, or Homo sapien gigantus, are huge, physically powerful, and very loyal adhuman mutants of humanity. They are basically the guy at the gym who never skips a day and makes sure to get his 1000 grams of protein in also. Then again, I imagine these guys would have to eat a whole cow to maintain that muscle mass. But Ogryns are often employed by the Imperium of Man as shock troopers in the Astra Militarum, and possess many traits the Imperium find useful. The fact that each one is basically Eddie Hall with the loyalty of a guard dog, it's not hard to see why they are used. However, an Ogryn's strength comes at a cost. They are extremely limited intellectually, with the most intelligent only being able to remember their name and count their fingers at best.
Ogryn serve. Ogryn fight. Wait, what?
With these restrictions, their battlefield role is reduced to simple and direct assaults, usually resulting in them charging towards the enemy with no fucks given. But Ogryns in combat are no pushover. With extremely thick skin, they can ignore wounds that would kill a normal man, and once they get their hands on you, you are basically dead. In combat, they favour close combat weapons such as knives, knuckle dusters, and power mauls. But their hands are just as good as any other weapon. They are quite capable of tearing limbs off space marines if they ever got the chance.
Crush and kill them. Go now!
Christ, can you imagine listening to that every time you play the game? Oh my god. Anyway, if you haven't guessed already, today we are going to be talking about Darktide, specifically the Ogryn. When Darktide got shown off for the first time, they showed off some artwork with our four main protagonists, one obviously being an Ogryn due to his overwhelming size when compared to the others. As far as I know, there is nothing in the Astra Militarum that is equal to this in size other than a Space Marine without his power armor on, and the fact that this game seems like a Guardsman game, I'm willing to bet that this is an Ogryn. So in today's video, I'm going to do my best to break down, speculate and discuss how I think the Guardsman size Shrek is going to play. So one of the first things I think we should nail down is the character. We all know that a recon squad has been sent to sub-level 6 of the Hive to determine the full extent of the unrest. An Ogryn would not even be able to comprehend that sentence and simply follow a task as simple as search sub-level 6 of the Hive. Hence why I think we are getting a bonehead. Now, for those of you that don't know what a bonehead is, among the dim-witted Ogryn species, there are sometimes rare individuals who show a glimmer of intelligence, such as problem-solving capabilities, memory, or natural drive. These individuals stand out as ideal candidates for the biochemical Ogryn neutral enhancements, hence the name Bonehead. They are brutal but effective leaders. They usually lead squads of other Ogryns, but obviously in this case we are not going to see that. Boneheads are much more coordinated than their primitive brethren, able to wield weapons with more dexterity, though their clumsiness can never be completely eradicated. They have many qualities that define a great leader and are driven individuals, usually willing never to back down or admit defeat. They are not afraid to lead from the front and believe their orders come directly from the Emperor himself, hence why they are so loyal to getting their job done. However, despite their training or modifications, no amount of tinkering to their brain can eliminate a bonehead's base instincts in which they get from the savagery of their harsh, brutal living conditions on their home worlds. This results with boneheads equipped with implants to enhance those areas, turning them into engines of war. And when the right criteria is met, or if a trigger phrase is said via Vox Link, a bonehead's rage is truly terrifying. One interesting thing that Darktide are obviously keeping a secret in the artwork is whether the Ogryn is a bonehead or not. Obviously bonehead clearly have cybernetic implants on their head, which shows where they have had the surgery. In the artwork, we're looking at the back of the Ogryn, hence why we still don't know if we're getting a standard Ogryn or not. However, I believe a bonehead would make a great addition to the game. It allows for much more funnier dialogue when the Ogryn might believe he's in charge of the group, or some conversations where people might get annoyed with the Ogryn for sounding dumb and annoying or have stupid plans. Perhaps he might even be like a big teddy bear and be the nicest person on the group. We will have to wait and see. So as you guys can see from my awful Photoshop skills, I've decided to make my own Ogryn classes, with abilities, skills and perks. I felt like we had to give the Ogryn a name and some lore behind him, so I've decided to call him Gore Knob Butcher. You can only remember his first name, Gore, but the second was given to him when he saved an Imperial officer from an Orc Nob, and was later recruited by the Inquisitor for this mission into the Hive. So starting with the first class, this will be the Bullgrim class. Bullgrims are Ogryns in custom-made carapace armour and carry crude assault weapons. They are best used for their protective duties and will form a shield wall at the slightest sound of gunfire. The role I really want the Bullgrim to take on is the bodyguard / tank role of the group. This is going to be your Ironbreaker Bardin, which does decent damage but really focuses on tanking damage and protecting the group. Moving on to his passive ability to coincide with this, Carapace Armour. Heavy attacks count as light attacks by all enemies when hit for 3 seconds. This is to show that Ogryns don't go down too easily, and this would benefit the Ogryn when he's in a swarm of enemies and maybe he gets hit by like a minor enemy once and then a huge heavy overhead comes and hits him from another. That heavy would count as a light attack, using less shield stamina and doing less damage. His career skill, Bond of Fellowship, is based more on the fact that he is a bodyguard. Gore roars seeing all his fellow teammates in trouble, causing all enemies to focus him. This really solidifies his role as a tank / protecting others. Ogryns take oath bonds very seriously, and will put themselves in harm's way to save others, even if it gets them killed. Lastly, his perks, we first have protective duties. Obviously I imagine the shield stamina system in Darktide will work similar to Vermintide. This is why for this class that will be focusing on shielding, it's a good perk for it to have one more shield stamina. And one of my favourites, Oathbound. 10% damage reduced for nearby guardsmen. I really like this idea as it's basically a perk that helps other people rather than the Bullgrim himself, and I think it fits the playstyle of staying with the team and keeping others safe. So that is my Bullgrim down. Definitely a class for the Ogryn I would love to see in the final game. As for weapons, I will be covering that later in the video. So moving on to my second class, the Gunlugger. Gunluggers are your Ogryns with ranged weapon efficiency, if you can say that. It's more firing rounds into an enemy until they run out of ammunition or the enemy is dead. They will sometimes fire over 5,000 rounds at a single target and will rarely stop. They are great at providing cover fire and range damage against enemies. So the passive ability is called Countless Ammunition. Darktide have said that they want the shooting just to be as big as the melee combat, hence why I don't think it's too extreme to say that characters getting a lot more ammunition is out of the question. But for the Gunlugger, they are known for shooting thousands of shots in seconds, and I don't think it would be a true Gunlugger's experience if you had to wait for ammunition all the time. Which is why I like the idea with the ammo that you find on the map, you also get ammo regenning 10% every minute. This allows you to always have some ammunition for every engagement, and not always forcing you into that playstyle of melee combat. For his career skill,
Roll destructive power.
I really like the idea that the Ogryn is able to shoot and run with all his shots having a 1 in 3 chance of being a crit, basically exploding any man-sized enemies to body parts. It does say in their lore that Ogryns are strong enough that they can actually run with their giant weapons in their hands while shooting, and I really like how this could play in Darktide, using this skill, running towards the enemy while shooting and then using your gun as a massive melee weapon. As for perks, we have 50% more ammo, nothing special about that other than obviously that it makes this class better to take when you want to be more of a ranged Ogryn, and lastly, destructive capabilities. 10% chance not to use grenades, anti-tank bombs and incendiary devices. We most likely can guess that we will be getting these similar to Vermintide bombs, and in Gunlugger lore it does say they carry a lot of explosives with them, so this perk fits that idea quite nicely. So that is my Gunlugger. I imagine this class will definitely be seen in the game, as the Ogryn in the artwork clearly is holding some sort of massive gun, and many more ranged weapons are available as well. So last but definitely not least, we have the Bulwark. These Ogryn, unlike their normal brethren, are more intertwined with their primitive nature of smashing their enemies or breaking their bones with their massive fists. Bulwarks are always at the front of the unit, ready to take on any enemy that is thrown their way. They are so stupid they can't even comprehend what is going on most of the time. They see a battlefield more as a McDonald's playpen, thinking that they are just playing a game most of the time. In combat, a Bulwark is the definition of range, fighting without thought or self-well-being. They swing their weapons at every enemy in sight, which causes armor to buckle and bones to break. They become so enraged that they completely forget about pain, and when charging towards the enemy, they are a true horror to see in combat. So onto the passive ability, Mighty Blows. Hitting the same enemy more than once will stack the damage 5 times by 10%, so with each hit your damage increases by 10% up to 5 times. I wanted the bulwark to feel like when it hits an enemy, it only gets more angry if the enemy does not die, smashing harder every single time. This makes the bulwark a great boss killer, but obviously if you get interrupted, the stack will restart. His career skill, Primitive Instincts, Gore's Primitive Instincts kick in charging towards the enemy using his hands to attack with no interruption, with a 15% movement speed increase. As you can guess, this goes great with his Mighty Blows passive. This skill would truly show how powerful an Ogryn can be when enraged, and I think it would obviously be more scarier than a Bard and Slayer due to his size. But I love the idea of using fists as a weapon in Warhammer. I don't think we've ever seen that, and I think it would just be really damn cool to see. For perks, Thick Skin, reduced damage taken by 15%, which is what they get from the living conditions on their home world, and Savagery, attack speed increased by 10%, making the Bulwark the fastest in combat out of all the Ogryns. So that is my Bulwark. I think it might be my favourite out of all the Ogryns, but I feel like it might be the least one we have chance of actually seeing in the final game. However, I'm optimistic, and I hope Darktide see the potential they can do with all their characters. So moving on to weapons, Christ, as we all know there are a lot in 40k, but when it comes to Ogryns, things get a little tricky. They're not the smartest of soldiers, and operating a gun can be quite a task for them indeed. But from a gameplay perspective, I think we might have to bend the rules just a little bit. So starting with the Bulgrim, these guys have two different types of shields. Brute shields being a little smaller, which I can imagine has less shield stamina, but allows for more dodges like how you play in Vermintide. Comparing that though to the trademark slab shields of the Bulgrims, there's not a competition. Slab shields are much bigger and will most likely have more shield stamina at the cost of speed. As for their other hand, it would usually be a standard power maul, which obviously goes great with the shield, but I imagine it's not too far-fetched to say as well that we could be seeing a power axe in the same position. Perhaps the power maul is better against armoured targets, whilst the power axe is faster and maybe better at taking out chaff. As for ranged weapons, I think the Grenadier Gauntlets are the only weapon we will actually see for the Bulgrim if we do see one, as I think the player should always have to take a shield with that class. Onto the Gunlugger, his melee weapons consist of a huge knife and obviously the trademark Ogryn Ripper Gun. Honestly, a Ripper Gun should be able to be taken in every class and used as a melee weapon. Basically, Ripper Guns are special, large auto shotguns made for ranged combat and for clubbing in melee, made specially for Ogryns. As for ranged weapons for the Gunlugger, anything that has the word cannon or heavy I think is fair game. The auto cannon, obviously the Ripper Gun as well, las cannon, plasma cannon, missile launcher, heavy bolter, and obviously the heavy flamer. Also, for the life of me, I can't work out what gun we have in the picture for the Ogryn is. I mean, it looks like it's hooked up to the backpack, so if I had to guess, I would say either an auto cannon or a las cannon, but still, that barrel, I just can't work out what it is. Lastly, we have the Bulwark weapons. Knuckle Dusters, something we don't really see in 40k, but I still think it fits an Ogryn's fighting style. Perhaps dual wielding knives as well. I mean, that could even be power mauls if they wanted to. I mean, the Thunderhammer is a massive shot in the Darktide, pun intended, I know, but an Ogryn could clearly lift one, and I don't see why, if it can lift one, it can't swing one. Lastly, the Power Claw. I know that's an orc weapon, but it really could be in the game, I think. I mean, it could be instead a Power Fist or a Lightning Claw, but I think a Power Claw would be a much more fitting weapon for an Ogryn than an Astartes one. In terms of range weapons for the Bulwark, I'm not sure they should really have one, other than maybe a Ripper Gun, as they usually focus on more melee combat like a Slayer. And that is my speculation / predictions for the Ogryn in Darktide. Please give this video a like, as it did fucking take me ages, and honestly my fucking arse is glued to the seat. But I really did enjoy speculating, so let me know in the comments, you know, did I miss something, or is there something else you want to see? I also am going to be doing speculation on the other 3 characters, so if you want to see that, please subscribe, and also let me know in the comments which one you want me to do first. But other than that, it's been your boy Poncha, and I'll see you next time. Bye.